Hey everybody, this is a sponsored review of an app, so I wanted to be transparent about the sponsorship tag, but don't worry, everything that I say in this video, all opinions and the reviews are based on my hands-on real-life experience. So with that out of the way, let's go talk about accountability. So I wanted to start today's video with a little bit of a story time, and I promise we will get into the review. I just think that starting off with this is going to be very important for making my point, and the point is this. When I first started being into productivity and self-development, especially because of the sole purpose of thinking that productivity was going to be one way to live a happier, healthier life, then you gotta know that I got into that stuff when I was really, really young. And when I say really young, I was in my late teens, not even in my 20s. And back then, at that age, life was a lot simpler. For example, I didn't have as many responsibilities as I do now. I had the privilege of living in my parents' home, and they provided for things like bills and food. I never had to think about that stuff when I was in my early to late teens, and admittedly even in my very early 20s. And even when I graduated and got my first full-time job, it wasn't like I was making enough to be able to, be financially independent. So my parents were able to help me with important things like paying off bills and making sure that there was food on the table. And all in all, I just wanted to start off with this because it was really easy to be productive when that's your life. And now that I'm in my late 20s, and I still can't believe I'm kind of saying that, life looks a lot different than when I was in my early 20s and when I was in my late teens. Productivity does not look the same. Now I have a home to take care of, I have a husband, I have responsibilities like taking care of people at my job as a manager. There's just all these things that I didn't have to worry about when I was a lot younger, and now it's just been a lot harder to stay productive using the same systems that worked for me when I was a lot younger and had a way different lifestyle. And if you're like me, you've tried it all. You've tried the to-do list templates, the Notion templates, the habit trackers, the project management systems, the affirmations, the vision boards. And like me, maybe you've had some success with some of these, but ultimately you find yourself kind of jumping from one system to the next just because just maybe keeping it fresh seems like the only thing that works. Like trying out a different productivity method was just working better than staying consistent with one system for a long time. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I mean, I like novelty. I like the dopamine that I get from trying something new and trying a new system. But after all this trial and error, after years of doing this and even sharing some of them on my YouTube channel, I feel like I needed a reset. And that reset meant stopping the DIY productivity and turning to what I think is an unlikely source for myself, which is accountability coaching. So this is where GoalsWon, the sponsor of today's video, comes in. And I need to be transparent. When they first reached out about trying out their product for free in exchange for a review on my channel, I honestly didn't think it was for me. I have to be very candid about that. At the time, I was thinking,
accountability coaching? Me? I don't need that. I have a Notion template.
And in the middle of the last couple of years, I've dealt with some pretty crazy life changes. I mean, I moved places 3 times in a couple years. I got married. I had to adapt to an entirely new routine that wasn't just about me anymore. I started a new job in venture capital, which is the most different, I guess, environment or industry I've ever stepped foot in. And I've spent nearly every spare minute trying to squeeze time into exercise, to feed myself, to look at furniture and decor for all these new different places that I'm in, and maintaining what I figured was at least a healthy social life. And to be honest, between all of that, I may have taken some shortcuts along the way. I'm not proud to admit it, but I mean, I fell into some really bad habits. One of them, for example, was turning to fast food just because it was easier than cooking for myself when I was so tired at the end of a long day. It meant falling off my workout routines for like weeks at a time because I just didn't have that energy anymore. And don't get me started about my revenge bedtime procrastination. That would keep me up till like maybe 2 a.m. because I just did nothing but doom scroll on my phone. So all in all, TLDR, really bad habits, really had to change. So it was with that realization that I thought, you know what? let's revisit this GoalsWon proposal and actually give this accountability coaching thing a shot. GoalsWon is an app that keeps you on track towards your goals by assigning you to your very own accountability coach. So unlike most habit tracking apps or to-do list apps, there's actually someone who sees all the goals and to-dos that you want to work on and then keep you on track that way. It works just like any other app for habit tracking, but it comes with a chat tab where your coach checks in with you or where you can share your progress, your roadblocks, and really just everything in between. I wanted to try GoalsWon for 30 days, and within those 30 days, I would be traveling for a little bit just to visit family and friends. And I thought that this was the best time to try out an accountability coaching platform like this. This was the most real experience that I could think of to review the app, because at the end of the day, life is life. You know, you have goals, but life happens. You have family to see, you have travels to go on, but your goals are still your goals, and you can't just keep taking a break every time you have a tiny detour. So without further ado, with all of that in mind, let's jump into how my 30 days with accountability coaching through GoalsWon has been. So getting started on GoalsWon was super simple. After I downloaded the app to my phone, I went through their quick onboarding flow that asked what my main goals were. For this review, I wanted to keep my goals simple because I wanted to just focus on habit building. As I said in my story time earlier in this video, I had really fallen off a lot of good habits and picked up a lot of bad habits or shortcuts along the way. And I really wanted to address that before tackling any big projects, because I just felt like if I had good habits, it was so much easier for me to work on big goals, like, you know, staying consistent with my YouTube channel or launching new products and all that stuff. So for the entirety of the 30 days, I just wanted to focus on 3 major habits, one of which was getting to bed earlier. The second thing was just eating better or just being more mindful about what I ate. And number 3 was just getting my workouts in. These sound like really basic habits, but if you listen to my story time, you know that I had a lot of crazy things happen and I'm tired of using it as an excuse. So I wanted to fall back into these good habits and just like work my way away from the bad ones. So we're really starting simple here because I think that that's the best place to start. Now on GoalsWon, you have the option to add whatever kind of goals you'd like, whether it's something like a habit like mine, or maybe even one-off projects and big tasks that you want to chip away at. It's really up to you how you want to use the platform. Something that I also appreciate was that the user experience was similar to a habit tracking or to-do list app, but with this added feature for chatting with your accountability coach and getting them to check in with you every single day. Now, once you're all set up with your goals, you follow a simple loop of checking off the things in your to-do list, and then you submit that to your coach for the day. There is an option to have a mood tracker as well, so the app will always ask you how you felt given your results today, which I found to be a really nice touch. And just like that, your results are sent to chat with your coach, and then your coach takes it from there. And it's really that simple. And simple is good. Simple is easy to stick to. Of course, if you're like me and you need a little more dopamine, a little more novelty than most, then this daily loop can be a little bit repetitive. And if you are like me and that's true for you, then you might want to try keeping it fresh for as well as you can. Maybe you might want to ask your coach to help you get some novelty in there, just to make sure that the daily loop just doesn't feel as repetitive, and that keeps you from falling off, which is something that I often experience myself when I try new things. I'm really good at sticking to them in the beginning, and then I just taper off when it gets too repetitive and a little too, predictable. So the biggest benefit of GoalsWon is that you're really working with a human, not some kind of bot, not some kind of AI, not some kind of, interface that you just interact with on your own. You're actually one-on-one speaking with a real human. Now, I'd like to think that I'm smart enough to know if I was speaking to a bot, and with GoalsWon, I was 100% sure that that was not the case. I was speaking to a real human, someone who maybe on their own laptop or phone was really checking in on me, giving me advice, helping me stay accountable to all these habits that I wanted to keep for the next 30 days. And I really do feel that it's made the difference. Like, knowing that there is somebody on the other side who is there rooting for me, who is there helping me, who is there kind of counting on me to stick to my own goals, was a really motivating factor for me. Like, that was something that surprised me, because I wasn't someone who considered external accountability as a huge driving force for me to stay accountable to my stuff. But throughout this experience with GoalsWon, I've actually proven to myself that that's not the case. And that brings me to a point where I want to talk about why accountability coaching with a human works so much better than, let's say, doing it yourself with a habit tracking app. It's because, number one, maybe you don't want to let down a human at the other side of it like I did, and that could be a real big source of motivation. And number two, with a coach, you have somebody who can guide you with, at least from my experience, with positive psychology. And so it's on that note that one thing I really appreciate about the GoalsWon experience was that it was just so human. It was just coaching. And coaching is different from, sending someone your to-do list and then making sure that they annoy you every now and again. Your coach actually works with you, tries to understand why you might commit the same mistakes as before, why it's so hard for you to stick to a new habit that you're trying to set. With my experience with coaching is I found that my accountability coach was really trying to understand what these roadblocks were and trying to help me try new strategies if the strategies I had in mind weren't working. And it's just nice to have that. And the coaching just happens every single day. It's not like one of those accountability coaches that you check in with every week. GoalsWon works with daily coaching. So you have to submit your results daily. You have to track your mood daily. You have to speak with your coach and really be honest about why you're not sticking to certain things or why you're having a hard time. And then in return, they're going to coach you with hopefully strategies that'll work for you. And that's just like such a great, beautiful human experience that it's hard to get on any other platform, especially these DIY ones. One big plus about GoalsWon is that it also works on desktop. So it's not just a phone app. You can use it on your laptop or your computer. So having that type of flexibility just matters, and it makes it different from any of those platforms that are exclusive to maybe just being on your phone or maybe just being on your laptop. So part of me outlining this review was thinking of, were there any drawbacks? I mean, I've mentioned a lot of amazing, great things about the app so far, but in my experience, there were a couple of things that I think could be improved and maybe something you should know as well before you start, to try GoalsWon on your own. The first drawback is that, at least for me in the beginning, when I was setting up all my goals, I didn't think that it was obvious how to set one-off goals. It was very easy to understand how habits could be set up, but I wasn't really sure about like one-off tasks for maybe a big overarching project. I do feel like you could have just talked to your coach about this. Maybe they would have walked you through it. But in my experience, it just wasn't easy for me to DIY. And I'm somebody who tends to DIY things a lot. So that was just something for me to mention. But again, ask your coach. Maybe they'll be able to help you figure out the interface. But all in all, those are the only drawbacks I can kind of think of. The entire experience has been amazing. My results were real when I was on this app. And yes, you can attribute some of that to novelty, but I think there really is just something to having a human accountability coach behind all your habits and tasks and really rooting for you. At least from my experience with GoalsWon, I was really able to sleep early as much as I could. I was able to do more workouts in those 30 days. I was even able to do more intuitive eating, just like tracking and making sure I was eating well. And I did notice that when I stopped the review process and I was no longer on the app, it was so easy to fall back into those bad habits. So I guess you can say that accountability coaching really does work for someone like me, but I will have to repeat that caveat I mentioned earlier in this video about I need things to keep things fresh. So maybe if I were to redo my experience with GoalsWon, I would ask my coach to give me a bit of a challenge every now and again just to keep things fresh and interesting. At this point of the review, I want to talk about who I think GoalsWon is for. And I can think of like 3 buckets of people who could really benefit from an app like GoalsWon. The first is for busy people who just really need guidance and support. If you're not like me and you didn't spend your 20s, your early teens reading every productivity book on the planet and trying every type of productivity template, then you're going to learn a lot from your GoalsWon coach. You're going to see a lot of these new strategies. You're going to be accountable to them. You're going to be able to chat through anything that's maybe keeping you stuck. And that's just such a great experience. And if you're busy, you won't have time to figure that out on your own. I especially enjoy the focus on positive psychology. That's something I've always been receptive to. But if you personally feel you need some tough love or you need someone who's a little bit harsher on you, harsher. I don't know if that's like the right word, but like, you know, if somebody, you need someone who's a little bit more hard on you in terms of staying accountable, because you know that that's exactly what you might need. And as long as it's, you know, still a healthy dynamic, then definitely that's something that you can speak to with your GoalsWon coach, and I'm sure that's something that they can accommodate. The second type of person that I think GoalsWon would be perfect for are the chronic habit breakers. This is where I fall into. I'm somebody who always tries to stick to my routines as best as I can. I just know that I thrive off of that if I have one that I can stick to. It's just not easy to stick to. I've been on this whole productivity and self-development shtick for a really long time, and I can honestly say that friends and family aren't always the best accountability buddies for you. You can't always rely on somebody that you're close to keep you accountable to your goals. I just don't think that it's the best, and honestly that's okay. That doesn't mean that your family or your friends aren't supportive or they're not good people. It just means that we have different relationships with these people because we're so close. But with an accountability coach, your relationship is that they are your coach and you are the coachee. I have no idea what the word is for that. But what I mean is that relationship is different. And so when you have someone that you're working with exclusively with that kind of relationship, then it's just going to work out so much better for you. And you don't have to feel any sort of resentment if your family or your friends aren't keeping you accountable, because at the end of the day, that's not their main job. Like, you're still accountable to your own goals. Your family and your friends, they have their own goals. They're accountable to their own goals. They're accountable to other people, but they're not there to keep you accountable 100% of the time. And now the third type of person that I think would really benefit from GoalsWon is if you're somebody who's working on a really big project and you just really want someone to help you complete that project as soon as you can. Now, you don't have to use GoalsWon like I did. You don't have to do it for just habits or building up a routine. You can just do it because you're working on a really big project and maybe you're busy in every aspect of your life and you're doing well on those things, but this specific project is not getting the love that you want it to have, then you can absolutely use GoalsWon for that. I might even argue that having this really clear focus, like working with GoalsWon in that way, is actually a really great way to use the app. So I just talked about who I think GoalsWon would be perfect for, but I need to be honest and talk about the people that I think it wouldn't work for, because I think that it exists. Something that I find really irresponsible is when people say, oh, everybody can use this or everybody can benefit from that. That's just not true. Everyone is wired differently. And so I think that if you are this type of person, then maybe GoalsWon just isn't for you. And that type of person is this. If external accountability just really doesn't work for you. So historically, if you found yourself really, really against having external expectations from anybody, even if that's somebody you're really close to, then you might want to think really long and hard if you want to try something like GoalsWon, because at the end of the day, you're going to be exposed to accountability coach every single day. And you need to understand if this is something you can work with. So all in all, I've had a really positive experience with GoalsWon. I actually might just try it out again because of how well it worked to have a stranger keeping me accountable to my goals. But given this review, I hope you give it a shot if you think that this is something that works for you. I really can attest to how well it's worked for me. And so I'm going to go by that. But if you did enjoy this review, you might enjoy some of my other reviews that I've done on productivity platforms, systems, and apps. So I'll just leave a little playlist for you to check out somewhere on the screen. And if not, I'll be seeing you in my next video very soon. Bye!